Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to welcome you to the second career coaching webinar of the Advance webinar series organized by EATRIS. Advance is an innovative and focused learning program for future developers of ATMPs, so Advanced Therapy Medicinal Products, and it's a project funded by the Erasmus Plus project of the European Union. My name is Merel Ax, and I will be hosting and presenting this webinar for you today, together with my colleague Kim Verbomen. We both work for the Eureka Career Center of KU Leuven. Eureka stands for Young Researchers Careers. And in our Career Center, we want to help you early careers scientists in building up your careers inside academia or outside academia, and also help you make the transition from academia to industry. So today, the webinar of today, it will be about how to prepare for a job interview. So after having sent in your CV motivation letter, you've got it. You've got your golden ticket for the job interview. Now it's time to make a good first impression. Some of you have signed up for an individual career coaching session, 1 hour via Skype, to practice your job interview skills. If this is the case, we will contact you with a very short questionnaire by Monday, May 25th. After this, we will select 15 participants from everybody who has answered the questionnaire and also has attended the live webinar. Please note that we will give priority to participants strongly interested in the field of ATMPs. The interview itself will be scheduled, conducted in June, and by completing the job interview, you will be awarded the digital accomplishment badge. And these digital badges, you can share them on your social media, such as your LinkedIn. Please note that this session is being recorded. It will be made public on the EATRIS website. Also, the questions and answers at the end are going to be recorded. If you have questions, you can, during the whole time of the webinar, write them in the question box in the control panel. You see here where you can type them in, just press send. If you have questions after the webinar, you can always send us an email at advance@eatris.eu. Some other functionalities of our interface. You see this orange mark on the left top corner of your control panel. If you click it, you can hide it. You have a better view of the PowerPoints, which might be interesting for you. And then another option, it's just a suggestion on top of your screen on the webinar viewer. You see maybe both Kim and me at this moment. You can also choose the option who's talking, then you will only see the person who's talking. You can also hide the webcam, then you just hear our voices and you don't see us, up to you. We have a poll ready for you to put some interactivity in our webinar. So if you can already open this website, pollf.com/advance1. So open it on another browser or on your tablet or on your phone, if you can have that ready. So a warm welcome to all of you. We are already 75, which is very nice. I would like to present Kim Verbomen, who is my colleague at the Career Center of KU Leuven, and she's a senior career coach, and she also has broad experience in different HR fields and has been for a couple of years also working in recruitment. And then myself, I'm a senior career coach and also career development advisor, also working at the Eureka Career Center of KU Leuven. Okay, what's on the agenda for today? So we have an hour and we will give you quite a lot of input during this hour, but we have also prepared a handout for you. We will send this to you in a couple of days after the webinar. So the aim of this whole webinar is to, of course, listen and get as much of the input as you can, but also to have a look at the handout and work on the material. Okay, the agenda. Okay, we start with the first impression again. Because here as well, with the moment you walk through the door, it's the first impression you make that is really important. Then why is there a job interview? What is the goal of a interview? Then in the content of the job interview, what can you expect? The first question, tell me something about yourself. We have an exercise called the elevator pitch, which is a really nice one to prepare this question, the answer to this question. Of course, they will want to assess your competencies, your skills. They also want to know how motivated you are. What with the question, what are your personal strengths and weaknesses? They also might ask, do you have questions for us? Maybe the question about the salary. Then the take-home message of this webinar, a good preparation is key. You need to prepare for the job interview, so please do. And beware, it's not only the content, but also what you send out non-verbally. That is very important in this job interview phase, and it also attributes to your first impression. So let's start with food for thought for the job interview and of course guidelines on what to do, what not to do. So as I already mentioned, the first impression again. So your CV and cover letter were your first impression. You already worked on that really hard. So you got in, you've got your tickets, and now the moment you walk through the door, apparently, and also research says this, it's very important. In general, you could say hiring managers make up their minds within 3 minutes, and some of them even within 90 seconds, as this research here points out. So let's go to a first poll. So why are there job interviews? What is, according to you, the goal of a job interview? What do they want to know? So please type in your answers. I've made a Wordle of it, so you can just put a few words, not maybe too long sentences. Great, this is really working well, thank you. Yes. The word fit stands out. Match, position, personality, knowledge, function, skills, motivation, competent, team, company fit, good, no, convince, of course, future, the future, what is your future in the company? Will you match in your further career? Okay, great. Many answers I see. Right person, personality, job future. Okay, I see many answers and they're all right. Okay. So what I read here, what I see is, if I could summarize, um, are you competent? Are you motivated? Are you a good match? Do you have the right knowledge? What with this position? What in the future? Am I motivated? What about the team? So let me go to the next slide. It's an assessment. It's an assessment of you. It's an assessment of your skills, of course, of your motivation. Are you the right solution to the problem they have? Are you also fitting? Are you the right person for this job? Are you fitting in this organization, in this culture? But I want to emphasize as well the word mutual. It's not just an assessment of you, whether you fit in as a puzzle piece in the bigger picture of the organization, in the bigger puzzle, but you could also reverse this question. Is this job a fit for you? Is this job a fit for you? So it's actually a mutual assessment. So also for you, the aim of the job interview is to see if this is the right place for you to work, if this is the right job for you, etc. So please bear that in mind. So let's go to the next slide. So the content of the job interview, what can you expect in a job interview? I already mentioned there are a couple of divisions which are almost certainly coming back. The first one is the question, tell me about yourself. Then we'll talk about skills, we'll talk about motivation, strengths, weaknesses, and then other questions. Also the dreaded salary question. So let's start with tell me about yourself. What do you say? So don't panic. Here is the keyword prepare. The exercise you probably have heard of is the elevator pitch. So what is the elevator pitch? The general idea comes from that you have 30 seconds to convince the person standing next to you in the elevator that you are the right person for this job, that you are the right solution for this person's problem. So you shouldn't tell your whole life story, or you don't have to repeat your CV. So really make it relevant for the person you're talking to, also to your interviewer. So really adapt it, what you're telling about yourself, to this current position you're applying for and in this specific organization. And then there is what you say, but there is also how you say it. And that's even more important. I'll come back to that. So what is in the content of your elevator pitch? So there you could say three divisions. In the first one, you say who you are, what your skills are, what is your experience, education, relevant for this job, of course, and then why should they hire you? So you have to give them something concrete, an accomplishment, something that really shows your added value. So we talk here about concrete numbers, concrete achievements, results, grants, etc. Third part is why are you here? Why do you want this job? And what is important for you to find? But also the translation of that to the job you're applying for. So you have to make the bridge. So you have to have like your unique selling proposition ready. So it's not only what's in it for you, but it's also you need to make the translation what's in it for what you offer, what's in it for them. So bear in mind, you're talking here about what are you bringing here to the table. Let me give you an example. So this is an elevator pitch of a recruiter. So my name is Byron. I've been working as a recruiter for the past 5 years, and most recently, for the last year, I've worked in a New York City tech startup community, and my group was focused on helping growth stage tech companies hiring software engineers as they grew and expanded. One of the interesting things I did was that I put the first 5 software engineers onto the Spotify team when they first opened an office at New York City. Now they have grown rapidly, and that was key to them succeeding here in the US. So that was a big accomplishment. Right now, I'm looking for a fast growing technology company where I come in, a company that really does a lot of hiring, which I can help while also growing my own career. I want to come in and make an impact and don't want to maintain a status quo. So I would love to show you some examples on video, but unfortunately our interface doesn't allow this. So, we have added some links here in the PowerPoint, and this PowerPoint will also be sent to you so you could have a look. But maybe you've noticed the 3 parts. So the first part, I have been doing this, my background, I specialize in, so studies, experience, who you are, and then something concrete. Over the past years, I've helped so many people in and my real strength, my added value is, and what I'm looking for in a company is this. I can add value by, and is this also what your company is looking for? So in general, please try to stand out and start strong. You need to be specific and concrete. Don't make it too general. And then if you want to convince them, you have to sound enthusiastic and ambitious. I'll come back to that. I would really advise you to just practice on it, memorize it really as a script. So what you need to do is you need to work on it, memorize it in front of people, practice it, rehearse it, and then do that so many times that it becomes natural. So the word preparation is important in the elevator pitch, but it's actually key in the whole job interview process. And why is that? It also proves your motivation, that you've done your research. It proves your involvement, and of course for yourself, I don't know how it is for you, but for me this works. It also reduces stress. You have your answers prepared, you know what you're talking about, so you come across as more self-confident. And if you take the time to dig into yourself and into the position, it shows that you have some self-awareness, some self-knowledge, and that you're also honest in giving answers. So actually the preparation just increases your chances of getting the job. So how do you do that? Try to research yourself, research the company. So how can you research the company? For example, the About Us section on the website, their LinkedIn page, of course, maybe some reviews, and also use your personal network. Maybe you have a relative or a friend working, or somebody who knows somebody working in this company. Why not contact them to get a feel of the culture there, to get a feel of why is this position vacant? You get really a lot of information, what is important, what they would really want to know. So this is really interesting to do that. Do your own homework of yourself, your self knowledge. What are your skills, motivation, personal strengths, and then practice the interview. Now maybe in these corona times you will have to do a Skype interview, so why not practice a Skype interview or another by other means? Maybe it's a one-on-one interview, maybe it's a one-to-many interview. So really try to rehearse it in the form that it will actually take place. So you could really also prepare, of course, what you're going to wear, the directions, that you won't be stressed in that. You could take a portfolio, again, a copy of your resume, maybe a list of the references if they want it, and also a list of prepared questions. I'll also come back to that. Now, don't go into a cramp either. So you don't have to come completely prepared, and don't be spontaneous at all. So I would really say, once you're prepared, also relax and enjoy the interview and try to make contacts. Try to be your best self. And this links for me to the part of the nonverbal communication, or your body language. Apparently, one of the most common mistakes is that people, 67%, are not capable to make eye contact in an interview. And this is really not good. So you really need to make contacts, eye contact. Take your time. Even if you're nervous, just put your feet on the ground, breathe in and out, and make eye contact. This is very, very important. Other possible mistakes are bad posture, crossing your arms, closing, too many hand gestures, or fidgeting, or tipping your neck or your face, and also a handshake that might be too weak. That's, of course, not so interesting if you want to make a good first impression. So key in this webinar is beware of your nonverbal communication. Maybe you have already heard that in communication, only 7% of what you actually say is remembered. So 93% is the nonverbal. So we're also sending out a lot of communication with our body language. So 38% with the quality of our voice, our overall confidence, and also 55% the way we dress, act, and walk through the door. So keep in mind those things when you walk through the door, even at the reception desk of the company. This has already started. So beware also of things like your timing, clothing, handshake, smile, eye contact, and your posture. So talking about your posture, I want to give your attention to a TED Talk. Maybe some of you have already seen it. This is a TED Talk. It's one of the 10 most viewed TED Talks by a social psychologist called Amy Cuddy. And she says, your body language may shape who you are. She says, actually, it's not only your body language that has an influence on other people, it also has an influence on yourself, the way you feel and the way you feel confident. And she's talking actually about a power pose in this TED Talk. She really advises this also in preparation for a job interview, because she says most of the people have their cell phone and they will sit waiting in the hall quite closed. And this also has an effect for yourself, also on your hormones, but also with the possibility of convincing the other. So what the effect you have with your nonverbal communication. So the exercise she proposes you to do, and I would also propose you to do it, is the power pose. So the power pose is actually opening up. You can do it in different ways. You can see it in the TED Talk, for example, like this. So opening your arms, this is like a very powerful pose. And she proposes that you do this, of course, not in the hallway, but in the toilets where nobody can see you, for like a minute or 2 minutes. So why don't you try it? And then you can see that this area of your body will open up, and you will have a strong, a more powerful influence on the other. So the other people will be more convinced. And she says it's not really in a job interview what you're saying, it's your presence. And presence is actually this: what is your the energy, the power energy that you're sending out to the other. So if you would do this power pose, you are likely to make a good first impression, and you feel more confident yourself. So it's only 20 minutes, so why not have a look at it? Okay, I'm going to give the microphone now to Kim.
Okay, so one of the main goals of a job interview is to assess whether you have the skills for the job or not. Because your skills and your competences look good on paper, but how good are you really? Do you really have what it takes? Now, there are different ways to assess competences, like self-assessment, a 360-degree feedback, assessment center exercises, and competency-based interviews. I will tell you more about that in a few minutes. Now, from my experience, a competency-based interview is not always the first interview. The first interview is to get acquainted. It's mostly half an hour. A competency-based interview sometimes is only a second interview. Now, let me tell you something first about what is a competence. A competence is a skill. It is something that you can learn mostly by experience, and each competence has a definition and can be unraveled in different levels. And each level is described in behavioral indicators. These definitions and levels are described in competence dictionary, and most organizations use such a competence dictionary. Now, an interesting framework or competency dictionary for researchers is a researcher's development framework, the RDF. Maybe you already heard from it. It is established together with academia, governmental organizations, and industry. And we added here the link of Vitae, who developed the framework. You can have a look at it. It's free for everybody. So the framework captures the knowledge, behaviors, and attributes that the higher education sector overall has identified as significant for researchers. Therefore, the core of the framework has been determined and defined by the research profession and validated by stakeholders such as employers and funders. The RDF is a professional development resource designed by researchers for researchers. It can help researchers identify the skills and experience they need to acquire and to chart their professional development progress. When you're looking at future career options and goals, the RDF helps you to highlight, articulate, and provide evidence of the transferability of your capabilities and expertise in your CV, in job applications, and at interviews. Framework of the knowledge, behavior, and attributes of successful researchers. It enables self-assessment of strengths and areas for further development. And it is also a universal language for communicating researcher capabilities. Now, in the next slide, you can see how the RDF summarizes all competences. Now you can find it on our website, and in the handout we also included a definition of each competence, so you can have a look at it afterwards. And then, like I told you, so each competence can be unraveled in different levels, in different phases. Let me take the example of the RDF again. So the RDF distinguishes 5 levels, in fact. Let me just explain you briefly these levels. So in the first level, the starter level, you have the basics. You are only discovering. At the learner level, as the word says, you are learning and you are further developing the competence. On the independent level, you are assessed as skilled. You apply the competence. At the fourth level, it is the guide level. there you take more leadership and you are moreover proactive when it comes to the competence. And then the fifth level, it's the role model level. It's moreover a meta level. Yeah, you are posing behavior that is far beyond the competence. Now let's have explain this with an exercise on the next slide for the competence teamwork. So like I told you, each level is described in fact in behavioral indicators. So like you see here, when you are at the starter level, you are participating as a team member. So you help when help is asked. When you are at the learner level, you are fostering teamwork. You are, for example, promoting team goals, seeking input of others. You acknowledge work of others. At the next level, at the independent level, you go even further. You demonstrate personal leadership in teams. It can be building relations, communicating expectations of teamwork. At the fourth level, the guide level, it goes even further there. For example, you can capitalize on teamwork opportunities like encouraging, supporting, initiating teamwork. You can address challenges. And then the fifth level, the role model, it is really it is even going further than that. It is, for example, building bridges between teams, facilitating collaboration between different teams, breaking down barriers between teams. So I think you can see the difference in the levels. Now, like I told you, one of the ways competences can be assessed is in a competency-based interview. And in such an interview, interviewers use the STAR methodology. It is a methodology where you will be asked to describe a situation. So that's what the first S stands for, to describe a situation where you had to prove that you have a certain competence. Then you will be asked to describe what was your task, what was expected from you, what was your responsibility. So they also want to exclude the influence of others. So it is important to to tell them something in terms of I was responsible for. And then which actions did you take? Eventually, which obstacles did you have to overcome? What was the result of these actions? And the last R stands for reflection. How do you reflect on it afterwards? What went well? What could have been done better? I would like to give you also some examples of questions that interviewers might ask when they are using the STAR methodology. So it could be give an example of a situation in which you were under a lot of pressure. Did you ever had to deal with someone who was very angry, and how did you deal with this? Tell me about a time where you had to find a solution for a complex problem. What was involved and what actions did you take? Tell me about a situation where you have proven you have strong analytical skills. Okay, now, like Merel already told you in the beginning, one of the purposes also of an interview is to measure your motivation. Are you motivated enough for this job, and are you motivated for the company? Now, how will they measure your motivation? Well, they can ask different kind of questions to do this. Like, for example, the very direct question, why do you apply for this job, and why do you apply for this company? And here it is important not only to focus on the benefits for yourself, but also for them. So here also make the bridge, what you have to offer and what they are looking for. If you are already working, they might ask you why you would like to change, why you would like to leave the company you are now working for, and why now. What is important here is that you have a positive story ready. So don't be too negative about your current job or the current company you're working for, but focus moreover on the opportunity you see in this job and in this company. They might also ask you what you liked in your previous job or what you didn't like. And finally, they can also ask you what you know about the job or what you know about the company. They would like to know if you prepared, if you had interest in the company. So here's also the the key is prepare for these kind of questions. Do some research, like Merel told you a few minutes ago. Have a look at their website, have a look on their LinkedIn page. What do you like? What do you learn about them? So you are prepared for these kind of questions. Okay, and then there might be a question also about your strengths and weaknesses. Now, talking about your strengths is maybe not that difficult, but also here, prepare for this question. Make sure that you have your top 3 strengths in mind and also pick the right ones, so according to the vacancy. But how about talking about your weaknesses? That is not that simple, like talking about your strengths. Now, recruiters can use can ask for weaknesses in 2 ways. They can use the same STAR methodology, like I explained to you a few slides ago. Like, for example, so they can ask for a situation where you didn't succeed in something, or they can ask you, can you tell me about a situation where you didn't meet your deadline? When was the last time you weren't satisfied with your own work? Did it ever happen you had to collaborate with a difficult colleague or boss, and how did you handle that? And important here is that you focus on the last R, on the reflection part. They want to know, did you learn from it? It is normal to make mistakes and not to be perfect. Nobody's perfect, but they want to know, are you aware of your weaknesses, and do you know how to counter them? Do you know how to work on them? And then the second slide, they might also ask you the direct question, what are your main weaknesses? What are your main development points? Now you can describe your weaknesses starting from your strengths. That's the good news. And that's the way you can do it in order not to be too negative. And Daniel Hoffman developed a model that is really nice to do this. The model is called the core quadrant. In fact, Daniel Hoffman says that each core quality has each a shadow side if you show too much of it. So each quality can become a pitfall if you exaggerate. And then the positive opposite of your pitfall is your challenge. In fact, your challenge is how you can avoid that your quality becomes a pitfall. And then to make the model complete, if you show too much of your challenge, it can become an allergy. Now, enough theory. Let's explain this with an example in the next slide. So, for example, someone can be determined. That's a nice quality. But if you are too determined, you can become pushy. So, being pushy is then the pitfall of the quality. The positive opposite of being pushy is being patient. So being patient is a challenge, in fact, for someone who is determined. It can avoid that someone who is determined can become too pushy. And then the allergy of someone who is determined most of the times is passiveness, and passiveness is when you show too much of patience. Now, why am I telling you this? All in order to tell you that you can talk about your weaknesses starting from your strengths. And then describing a weakness can become, I am determined. When I know what I want, I'll go for it. What I also know about myself is when I get too enthusiastic, I can become overbearing and pushing. I realize that, and I try to pay attention to it by being more patient and listen to others. So emphasize your quality, your pitfall, and your challenge. Also in the handout, we give you some blank core quadrants so you can exercise this yourself also. Now, beware that for those who have modesty as their core quality, going to a job interview is in fact in your challenge zone. because in an interview it is important to present yourself enough and not to be too invisible. And a good preparation can help you to say what you need to say and not to become invisible. So this is just another example of the core quadrants. Okay,
Okay,
Merel,
thank you.
I give the
Yes,
word back to you.
thank you, Kim. Okay, so after these questions, what they might ask you is, so do you have any questions for us? So maybe you don't, and you think, oh no, I will say no. So we would advise you to not say that and not get out too quickly, because actually it also is a sign of how motivated you are. It measures your motivation, and also you can also prepare this question. So we have another poll for you. What would you ask? What would you ask as questions? You were to be asked this question. Do you have any questions for us? What are the questions you're coming up with? For those who joined later, please have the Poll Everywhere website, pollf.com/advance1. And there you can write in the questions that you would ask to your interviewer. Here you can write down the whole question, so it's not a Wordle. I'm guessing it takes some time to think of questions. I hope the poll everywhere is working. Maybe it's not. Oh, I see that there are questions coming in the question box here. So you can write it also here if you prefer. Maybe there's something wrong with the poll everywhere. Let me read what I see here. Questions about conditions of service, salary. Is it okay to talk about family situations? That's a question that we will answer at the end of the webinar. Can you show me the workplace? I see here as a question. Mm. How flexible are you in working hours? Because I like the work at unusual hours. About questions about the team. Um, what kind of the qualities are you guys looking for? What does a standard day look like? How is the atmosphere in the team? A question about the benefits. Trying to distinguish which answers I can give here and which are questions for later on in our discussion. Okay, so we've heard some questions more about the workplace, about the team, about what a working day would look like, and then there were some questions more about benefits, about salary, about more secondary motivators, you could say. Okay, these are all good questions. The key is here to prepare. So let me go to the next slide. And I have also prepared some questions. We've put many more in the handout even. And what I would advise you personally is to first ask questions about the content of the job and also about the company. So try to think what would be questions that would show your interest in their company. For example, how will you know in 6 months' time, talking to the interviewer, that I have been successful in this role? From your perspective, what are the most challenging aspects of this position or role? I'm picking out a few. What is the biggest challenge for the company right now? Of course, an important one, who will I be working with and who will I be reporting to? What is the next step in the hiring process? What would be first priorities within the company if I was chosen, etc. So have some questions ready. I would advise first more on the job and on the organization, and then talk about other things such as salary, for example, or work-life balance issues, etc. You could also ask them here. So it really depends a little bit. Let's go into that also in the discussion in a few minutes. So there is no right or wrong answer. It always depends on the culture. And so it's good if you already have a feel of the culture. So if you have done some informal networking, informative networking also, and you already know also a lot via the website of a company, how they, what are their values? So are they matching your own values? Um, so I call it here the dreaded salary question. It is important to know when this question will be put on the table. So before you go to the job interview, is it the first job interview or is it one of the last in the selection process? Have it prepared. So research yourself already. What do you want? What would be like a good range for you comparing to your current salary, for example? What would really give you the feeling like, okay, this is a good step? And at the same time, what is okay to expect in this at this moment for this company, for this function, for this role, for this position? So you could also do some research with some online tools and also via informative networking. Of course, here as well, this career section of the company's website. Sometimes they have very clear information on what you can expect. If the question pops up quite early, for example, in the first interview, don't answer right away. So key in this question is negotiate. You could, if the question comes to you too quickly, to your personal feeling, turn this question around and just make it an open question to the interviewer. What is a range for this position, for example? They will tell you. And then, and I think we want to stress this as well, salary is not the only thing that is valorizing the job. Think also about other benefits, such as maybe some formation possibilities and holiday days, etc. So it really depends, it's the whole package. So let me conclude, and then we still have, yeah, we have 15 minutes, I think, for the questions. And I saw there were many questions coming in. So let me conclude first. So we call this webinar How to Prepare for a Job Interview. So the title already says it all. So just prepare, prepare, prepare. Don't go unprepared. And of course, don't go into a cramp either. Make your preparation and then relax and just trust on everything you've prepared and make contacts. Relax, listen, ask questions. It also has put some horizontality in the conversation, so you're not like in a down dog position looking at the interviewer. No, you're on the same level. You're having this mutual assessment. You're talking. You have questions. They have questions, and you're looking together. And of course, they want to see if they want to hire you, but also you want to know: is this the place where I want to work in for the next couple of years? Beware of your non-verbal communication. Do the power pose. What you could also do is you could follow up with a thank you email. Okay. So, are there any questions? I'm thinking there are many questions. Let me have a look. So, first question is it different when you do the job interview in front of a recruiter, or if the hiring manager or the person talking to you, the interviewer, is somebody from the R&D department or maybe the director of a small biotech company? Do you see different things? Is it different? Kim, would you like to answer this
Yes,
question?
yes, no problem. In my opinion, it is different. Yes. When I did recruitment, my role as a recruiter was moreover to test things like motivation, are the salary expectations okay, and mostly to test the soft skills. And the interview with the manager, moreover, was about technical competences.
Mhm.
That was that was for me the big difference. the difference between testing the soft skills by the recruiter and then moreover the technical skills with the manager.
Okay. Then I read here this question: is it okay to talk about family situations? So of course, this is an important question. I'm not really sure what this person means with this question, but I'm guessing, um, is it okay, for example, if to talk about your own family planning, or to have um, to bring up this question, how they look at work-life balance, for example. What do you think,
Yeah.
Kim?
Yeah, I think that that is okay. Maybe it should not be the first question you ask at the end of the interview. But if it is important for you, I would definitely say yes, ask these questions. Ask about possibilities or ask about flexible working hours, working from home, for example. Do I have to travel a lot? If these questions are important for you and for your family situation, then you should ask these questions. Yes, definitely.
Hmm. I think if I can add something, it's really you should really try to get a feel a little bit of when it is a good timing to ask, and also how this company you're doing the interview with holds this in their values. Is it something they
Mhm.
talk about? Is it something they're open about or not? Um, but of course, if it's important for you in your values, then it's important to talk about it. But as Kim says,
Yes.
maybe not as a first question. Um, but that goes for all these more secondary motivators, also like salary, or like how can I combine this? So when it's not really about the content of the job, but more the combination of work with home, or all the benefits. So you should really try to feel a little bit when is it a good time, and also see for yourself, okay, how important is this in making my own decision in this process? And then, of course, ask the question and also see how they react, but also try to have some info on that beforehand, via maybe people you know, or via getting some input on the organizational culture. That can be interesting. Okay. I see here, how do we start talking about the salary? Well, I'm guessing we've already talked a little bit now about it. You will also find some input in the handout. Um, I would say they will probably ask you. You can also ask them, but same question, same answer as the former question. Don't start yourself with that too early. If they don't come up with that, of course, in a further phase, you could start with that yourself. But this is really about negotiating. But so I would really say you should also feel a little bit here. What could you say? What can't you say? And I would propose to you people to ask a lot of questions, ask open questions to them, and try to get as much as info that you need to be able to make your own decision. So try to it's a subtle art, this negotiation. So um, you should feel when it's the good moment, and but have it prepared as well. I think this is an important one, and know what your range is. Then and then you can see what is possible. And if there is a match on that level, of course, because it's important. We're not going to say that it's not important.
Yeah, my experience is that this question comes rather quickly. It's mostly in the first interview. They just want to know, are your expectations within the range that we can offer for this position?
Mhm.
So most of the times you won't have to address yourself this question to them.
Mhm, mhm. Um, I see here another question, Kim. I had a question from something mentioned earlier in the presentation. If they ask a direct question about a weakness, for example, as in the PowerPoint, can you mention the last time you did not meet a deadline? How do you reply when the question is not relevant for you, or when the situation they asked has never happened before?
Yeah, if it really never happened before, that's possible. And then you should not invent a situation. I think you should just say that. I hear you asking also if the question is not relevant. Um, I suppose that you mean then that it is not relevant for you because you never encountered that situation. So then
Mhm.
I would just be honest and tell them, well, they will ask you another question then. It's possible that you never
Mhm.
encountered a certain situation. They will ask you
Mhm.
another question to test the competence that they want to assess.
Mhm. I think it's important to have something prepared in general about your weaknesses, because it doesn't don't say something like I don't have any weaknesses, of course,
Mm.
because it really shows your self-knowledge, and this is what an employer wants. They want to hire somebody, not somebody who's perfect, but somebody who knows what their qualities are, and also who knows what their pitfalls are. So really prepare that. And maybe it's not about not meeting deadlines or anything. Maybe you're very structured, and this is really not a good, or this isn't your pitfall at all. But make sure to be able to tell them something about yourself, or a situation where you learned that, okay, I learned something from this situation. In the next time I could do that differently. Thinking about the STAR methodology, the reflection phase. Okay, I see there are many questions. What is the average time frame of an interview?
Oh, that really depends. Like I told you, some if there are a lot of candidates, and they have to do a lot of first interviews, the first interview will only last 20 to 30 minutes, I suppose, and then they will do again a selection, and then invite the positive candidates for a next interview. Moreover, an in-depth interview, a competency-based interview. I give this workshop to young researchers also, and I already received there the feedback of someone who told me that he had in total half a day of interviews, not always with the same person, but yeah, the interviews were just grouped in half a day, and I think he had 4 interviews with 4 different people. But I would say the average time frame of an interview where competences are tested also is 1 hour,
Hmm,
just an average. Yeah.
okay. Okay. Then there are some questions more about family planning. What would do we respond if we are
Mm.
asked if we are planning to have kids? Or another question: are pregnant women less likely to get a job? What should I answer in the case they ask about family planning, even that they are not
Yeah.
allowed to do that in Germany? What should I ask?
Yeah, that's a
And
hard
also
question. And if
sorry, Kim, just going to read another question on that as well, so you have them all. In Asian countries, it's very often to be asked about marriage and children. I hope this wouldn't happen in Europe. Yes, sorry.
Well, I think that shouldn't happen. I never asked that kind of question. I think that those are irrelevant questions. Um, so there are 2 possibilities. I think if you are confronted with that kind of question, um, in my opinion, you can say if they really are asking you the question if you are pregnant or you are planning to be pregnant. For me, you can say that you find that an irrelevant question, but then you have the chance that yeah, because you don't answer the question, that they won't take you as a final candidate. So the other possibility is just to answer honestly and right away. And I always say if they have problems with your family planning or with your family situation, well, maybe then it's not the right company for you to work for. If they find that family comes on the second place, and you find, well, I have to find a good balance between the two, maybe you don't fit into the organization, I think.
Hmm. Well, I agree. Um, So I think, yeah, it's of course normal that you would maybe want to have a family, and that if you're in this age range where they know that, and if it's important for you, you can talk about that, but don't feel obliged to talk about it, because it's just something normal, and just talk about the job, I would say. And you could also get some info on their website on how they look at that, etc. But I would agree to just be honest, but not to feel pressured to tell anything about that, even if you would. You don't need to say, for example, that you're pregnant, I think. So
No,
things like
no.
that. So you have your rights in that. um, there is also another question for me, a little bit relating in the same, in the way that, for this question is, how do you discuss issues of a career break during the interview? Why do I say that is related? Because I think here it's also about, how do you tell your story? How convincing are you? How have you made up your mind beforehand what you're going to talk about and what you're not going to talk about? So if you've had a career break, for example, or maybe it same goes for a bad career experience, how do you talk about that? So try not to go into the uncertainty or the feeling itself, but have something ready, how you can share that in a positive way, what you've learned from it, but not giving away too much. Don't show your vulnerabilities or failures at that time, but talk from your strengths perspective.
Yeah,
But have it prepared, and just be convincing, and just be honest, where you could really say, I had a sabbatical, or I had a break, and for this or that reason. If the contact is good and you feel that it's well received, then it will also give you some input in your decision making. Let
yeah.
me check the time. We still have time, I think, for 2 questions. um, if there are cultural differences between the country you come and the country of the organization, is it better to be yourself or adapt to the culture? It's a difficult
That's a good
question.
one. Yeah, it's a difficult question. Well, my opinion is always to be your best self. In fact, if you have the feeling that you have to stretch yourself too much um, in order to fit within the company, well, maybe again, it's not the company you would like to work for. So I would say, yeah, be yourself, and maybe you can do some compromises on some values or some cultural differences if it feels well for you.
Okay, we're almost out of time, so let me just take the final question. I'm gonna take two together. Other questions, I will answer them via email, okay? So during my last interview, I got a feedback that I need to be more persuasive, enthusiastic. How can I achieve that? And then another question in an online interview, how to make a good first impression of your image. So I think if it's online or in real life, you could try the power pose, try the preparation, but also in the preparation, rehearse it with somebody, and just how do you come across? What do they think? Really try not to be too in the content, but really in the convincing, in the talking, in making the contact, etc. So this is important. So yeah, we talk to somebody who knows you and who's really capable of giving a positive and yet critical feedback to you at the same time. So that's so try to find a buddy with whom you can rehearse your preparation, and then just see how you come across. Do you come across enthusiastically, open, etc.? Because your presence is really key in the job interview. Okay, so this was the final question. And I also have a final slide for you. Sorry, this is not the one, this is the one. So we would really like to thank you for being such attentive attendees. So thank you very much also for all the questions. I will try to do my best to answer the other questions via email. Please note that there is a next webinar. This is a one on ATMPs, on regulatory clinical aspects. It's already in a couple of days, May 28th. Also between 1 and 2, you can register via the forms that we will also send you, and via the channels such as LinkedIn, email, etc. If you have questions, mail them at advance@eatris.eu. Please note that you can also, for the people of KU Leuven, you can also have some more advice and some more webinars or formations when Corona is over via what we have to offer to you. And so by the beginning of next week, you will receive a PDF of this PowerPoint presentation. You will get a PDF of the handout and also a recording of this webinar. And in a couple of hours, you will receive an evaluation form, and we would be really grateful if you could fill this in and give us some feedback. So good afternoon to you all, and we're hoping to see you in the next webinars of Advance. Good afternoon. Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.